Hi, everyone. My name is Shachar Bialick, and I'm really excited to be here today. For many aspects, I've been waiting for this moment for over 5 years, and it's extremely insane to see what happened with our community and how it evolved. I'm here to speak with you about today on how we as a community can come together to free our money by getting Bitcoin to the masses. But before we begin, we have to look back 20, 30 years ago to understand how we got to where we are today. 30 years ago, our parents' financial lives were very simple. They had only one bank, one branch, and one account manager. They sourced all their financial products and services from that single branch. But we now know that simple isn't always better. We now know that banks took advantage of our parents and sold them the products that they wanted to sell them, products that made their profits higher and not necessarily made our customers and our parents better. So what has changed? Well, as markets and technology evolved, a host of new entrants has been introduced to the market, and we signed up to them en masse. And as we signed up to those products en masse in the past 10 years, our life became even more complex and more chaotic and more disconnected. So how do we solve this problem? Well, Bitcoin standard answers many of the questions. But for Bitcoin to become really adopting and solving the problem, we have to go and be able to bring it everywhere in the world. Because we as customers, we constantly crave more control, more simplicity, and more convenience. In order for us to bring Bitcoin to the masses, we have to solve two problems. We have to understand how markets operate and how the financial ecosystem work, because then we can hijack those systems and enable us to leverage them and bring Bitcoin to the masses. Specifically, we need to ensure that we understand how market operates and how the financial ecosystem works. So let's look at the first problem, how markets operate. Jim Bergsdale, the notorious CEO of Netscape, said that he knows only two ways of how to make money, bundling and unbundling. What did he mean by that? At the center of his thesis is that the technology available at the time that the incumbents arise defines the entire market. It defines the value chain. It defines the distribution. Let me explain that. I like to take music as an example because many of us have experienced music. Many of us have seen the evolution from a CD to MP3 to eventually Spotify and playlists. Back in the time, the control about the content we listen were held by three specific incumbents: Universal Music, Warner Music, and Sony Music. Back then, in order for them to distribute the content, the available technology they had were CDs. They had to go and print a CD, put it in consignment at the store, and waiting for someone to pick it up and pay $15, $20 per album, even if they just wanted to listen to one great song. It also meant that on the production side, as the value chain required them to operate scouts that are able to go and find remarkable talent, like Prince and Depeche Mode, talents that can produce not one song, but 10 or 15 songs, not one album, but 3, 4, 5 albums. Because the cost is so high, I would not pay $15 for one song. They were the gatekeepers of our society. The thread in society of music were gatekeeping by the executive at Sony Music. Then, new technology emerged, and with that, the new format of MP3. And that is the mark of the beginning of the unbundling of the market. New entrants like Pandora in the US, Deezer in France, eventually Spotify, came and offered a streaming service where the customer is back at the control. However, on the production side, the content was still the same very content owned by the gatekeepers from the old incumbent world. Then the market continued to evolve. An unbundled market is a very inefficient market, and markets by definition try to become efficient. So the rebundling begins, category king emerged. Spotify won the game. And over time, Spotify started to move down to production, changing the ecosystem, allowing and enabling us customers to discover new content, podcasts, and artists, no longer gatekeeping our society. Every one of us could go and identify any new artists simply by the personalization item of Spotify. Let's see if the same applies in banking. Let's go quicker through that. The distribution technology enabled by the banks back in the time were a very expensive one. Physical branches. That meant that there was no personalization and the cost of real estate and people was very high. The banks sold our parents the products that they've created on their ecosystem and took advantage that they're the only distribution channels our parents had. Then technology came forward and markets evolved, the iPhone and the internet. A host of new entrants in thousands in the past 10 years, offering better, faster, cheaper financial products and services. Products that still are using the same incumbent production side. And a good example for that is TransferWise. TransferWise is offering better effects. Up until recently, have still used RBS and Barclays behind the scenes. They were restricted with their innovation because of the current existing ecosystem. Which brings us to the inevitability. Eventually, the market will rebundle, and category kings will emerge, and will change the entire ecosystem from the ground up, because they have reached mass adoption before the incumbents have achieved innovation. And that's key. The competition we have here between us, the community, and the incumbents is who's going to be first. Will we be able to achieve the masses, or will they be able to achieve innovation and completely distort the Bitcoin standard we fought so hard to get to this state? So how would we build this operating system for money? How would we build this unique ecosystem that brings the customer back in control, in the power, to decide whatever they want, an immutable peer-to-peer access to money, wherever they are, everywhere in the world? Well, by definition, it means that you have to be over the top of the entire ecosystem. You have to aggregate the ecosystem to be able to converge it together and rebundle the market. So here, we need to understand how the financial ecosystem works, so we can tap into that. That's our view of how the market works. I'd like to start from the traditional finance space. First came the banks. Their job is the long arm of the regulation, to multiply money and create the economy in an extremely controlled way. And we now know in a very irresponsible way. Then, banks start to be able to speak with each other and move money across each other. And customers start to travel the world more and find more convenient, secure, controlled way to spend their money. So a new layer emerged, layer 2, the networks. Visa, MasterCard for consumer spending. Intrabank networks like SEPA, ACH, SWIFT, IBAN, faster payments came and emerged all over the world to enable banks and customers to move money around in an efficient and secure way. And even private companies like Plaid and Finicity came to this space, connecting the entire layer 1 ecosystem of banking. At the same time, a whole new ecosystem emerged, the Bitcoin standard, creating the first layer 1 as the blockchain. Then we had to make it more scalable and faster and cheaper. So layer 2 emerged, the Lightning Network, to make things better for us as customers. But if we truly want to be the customer at the center, we have to be able to bring both the ecosystems and merge them together so the customer is able to access them seamlessly, making everything fungible, eventually merging them to the way we want to see them. And to do that, we had to build a whole new layer, a layer 3 ecosystem. But to do that, we had to go and get unique access to each one of the layer 2 ecosystem play. As you could imagine, these are extremely walled gardens. There's a reason a layer 3 has not been happening to this date, and it's not because of lack of trying. We fought hard for the past 5 years to get this access, and we won. We won thanks to this community, and we won thanks to innovators who work in some of those companies and enabled us to start achieving our vision of bringing money to Bitcoin to the masses and free our money. And that's the outcome. One card to rule them all. Let's take a minute. Now, in everything I told you, just one central problem. A few days ago, the account of Satoshi Nakamoto came back online. And he came up with a call to action to all of us, that we have to go faster and innovate and take care of our digital identity. You see, as a Layer 3 company, we hold the verification of the identity of the customer. And the Bitcoin standard speaks about decentralization and ownership of the identity. And we believe the identity needs to be owned by the customer and used by the customer wherever he wants in their own terms. So how do we achieve that? It's a real problem, and we're working hard on the solution of how can we decentralize the identity while still maintaining the fabric of society. Because money laundering and funding of criminal activity and terrorist activity is a real problem in our society. But we believe there's a way. We believe there's a way to keep identity decentralized while maintaining the fabric of society. And we're not the only one who work on that. Jack Dorsey recently started to talk about what they're doing at Square to be able to solve that identity problem. But identity is also the reason why Curve is a unique advantage. You see, to bring Bitcoin to the masses, we have to achieve two things to solve two problems. First is accessibility. Most customers are afraid of Bitcoin, don't know about what Bitcoin is and how to onboard into Bitcoin. It requires over 12 steps to onboard to a new wallet, exchange, and buy an asset they're not familiar with. They're scared being on risk. So we have to find a way to bring Bitcoin to the masses in a much more accessible way. That's the first problem. The second problem is that we need to make Bitcoin more sellable, ubiquitous across space, so customers can spend the Bitcoin anywhere they want, online and offline, in the real world or in the Bitcoin world, across the globe. And that's why Curve is in a unique position to do that. Because we're coming from the traditional finance world, because we're luring people for traditional finance product that they know, familiar with, and attracted to, and because we're a regulated entity, it means that we are verifying all our customers. And that means that we can on-ramp them and off-ramp them with a tap. Very, very simply. So how do we bring Bitcoin to the masses? How do we orange peeling the next billion? Well, we start with a taste. And we're introducing the first ever product in the world to achieve that. Curve, from this day, is enabling anyone to earn Bitcoin cashback on any of their cards. What's unique, being on top of everyone else, means that you can keep using the products you love and trust, wherever they are, whether it's in fiat or in Bitcoin, where it's an account or a wallet. And that enables us to basically provide our customers double the benefit. They no longer need to choose between their Bitcoin wallet or the bank account. They can now bring it all together and enjoy double tip rewards. They keep earning rewards from the underlying card, but now they can start earning rewards in Bitcoin. They're not on risk. They don't have to provide any further information. We already have their KYC and verified them, and we bring them slowly into the Bitcoin ecosystem, letting them a taste of the orange peel. But I mentioned there are two problems to solve. The first problem, that my deck doesn't work. Sorry. A second. The first problem was that of accessibility. And the second problem is that of saleability. For Bitcoin to be a truly immutable peer-to-peer monetary system, we have to find a way to spend Bitcoin everywhere we want. And we thought hard about this problem. How can we solve this problem? How can we make Bitcoin sellable across time and space very, very quickly? Well, we found a way. We're doing something that has never been done before. We're going to enable customers to connect any of their wallets or exchanges to Curve and spend their Bitcoins anywhere they want in the world, at any merchant, any retailer, online or offline, without any integration required. And if you don't want to, you don't even have to sell your Bitcoin to spend it. We don't intend to become a new wallet or a new exchange. There are many of those, and they're great. We're going to connect them all together and enable you to get access to the ubiquitous world of payment in the traditional finance world. And with that, we have solved the saleability of Bitcoin across space, the ubiquitous of Bitcoin as a spending method. And doing that ensured we are dropping all walled gardens behind us and truly accelerating Bitcoin adoption by the masses. So to summarize, the world of money as we know it is a walled garden. To free our money, we need control over our finances, our identity, in a peer-to-peer manner and on our own terms. To achieve that, we must bring Bitcoin to the masses, and we must do that fast. We don't have time. It needs to be accessible to everyone and extremely sellable everywhere you'd like to spend it. Only then will Bitcoin serve its true purpose of becoming a currency, an immutable peer-to-peer monetary system that brings control and power back to the people. So join us in the revolution. Thank you very much for the time.